CEO of Paddle. For those of you who don't know, Paddle is a e-commerce and recurring billing platform for SaaS businesses. We've been going for about 6-7 years now. We're kind of approaching 150 people. It's been quite the ride. And this is an event that we started 2 or 3 months ago. We run them once a month, and it's kind of a Q&A conversation with SaaS founders, mostly in London, but from around the world, where we try and dig into some of the insights around kind of how they started their business, some of the challenges they had along the way. And delighted to welcome James from GoSquared today.
Hi. Thanks for having me, Christian.
No worries. I guess, what is GoSquared for those that don't know?
Sure. So, I mean, we can probably go into a lot more detail, but essentially GoSquared is a SaaS business, and we build software that helps online businesses, especially small and medium-sized businesses, grow online. So we started as an analytics company, and we now build a bunch of tools that help you understand who's coming to your site and convert them into customers.
Awesome. I guess how did this all start?
Okay.
Was it a conventional
How long have we got?
Yeah. Go for it. Go for it.
First, I must say a massive thank you to all of you for spending a beautifully sunny evening inside to hear about SaaS, and so I massively appreciate that. And also thank you for having me, Christian.
No
I'm
worries.
blown away by the cool office. It's very, very cool. So yeah, just to put it out there for a start, we massively admire you guys, and long for the day we can have 150 people in our own floor of a WeWork. We merely have a little glass box at the moment, but we try and get a lot done as a small team. And yeah, your question was, how did we get started? And I think we both started quite young.
Yeah.
So normally I feel unique in explaining the story, but this time I don't. But yeah, rewinding back to 2006, we were just kids at school, and so it was me and 2 of my best friends at school. One of them's here, JT, hello. And essentially we were just kind of a bit nerdy, and our school was very anti all things computing. And we just thought the internet seemed like this great opportunity to build stuff. And even though we were kids at 14, 15 years old, we just started getting together and seeing if we could build a website. and we started just building websites for various people, like friends, family. And I was always very into design, but I had no idea how to code anything. I was just a complete mystery. And thankfully, these guys, JT and Jeff, had a clue about that stuff. So we got together as this group of 3, and it turned out that we loved working together and building stuff. And we started building these sites, and then we made a million mistakes along the way, but we started just building things that we felt we wanted to use. And one of the things we kept doing was we kept building websites for other people and kept putting really awful tools on these websites. So back in 2006, I don't know how many people remember the internet back then, but this was dire days. And pre-iPhone, believe it or not, and pre-mobile internet, and most screens were designed for 800 by 600 pixels. Ugh, it was awful. But when we built a website, people would be like, oh, I want to see how many people are coming to the site, and I want to ideally capture leads on the site and things like that. And so all of the analytics tools out there were just horrible. They were looking at a dull grayscale Excel spreadsheet that wasn't interactive. And so we just thought this is so stupid, because people have a website and it's a core part of their business, and there are people coming to their website, but all of these tools just make it so inhuman. And so the first thing we built was this very simple tool that just listed out who was on your website in real time. And it was magic, because suddenly people could see oh my God, there's actual people on my website. And that was kind of what we started with, and we just started doing more and more of that, and started instead of trying to build website, eventually we just decided, instead of building websites for friends and family, which was a bit some months you'd make enough to get lunch, and some months you'd make nothing. Starting to actually try and build software and charge for it seemed like a really nice idea for us kids to like make a little side income, and yeah, eventually we left school and
Awesome.
did
I mean,
more.
so many parallels to my story. Like, I started building websites when I was like 14 for people.
It's not often you like meet someone and have this chat.
Yeah, so I started building websites when I was 14 for like friends, family, then like people that my parents knew who vaguely had businesses, and then kind of going door to door to restaurants, because I was like, restaurants don't have websites. And then like kind of ended up in software in a similar way. Mine was because the first like customer that I had actually wanted an invoice, and I was like, I don't know how to send an invoice. So I like Googled how to send an invoice, and like QuickBooks or something came up, and I was like, it's £8 a month. I'm like, screw that, I can build it myself. So I did. And then that was, I much like found out that I enjoyed building software more than I enjoyed making websites for people. And then kind of eventually tried to scratch my own itch, which was selling software was hard. And that's how I started with Paddle. So it's a super similar kind of story in terms of like kind of progression. So I'm interested. So I have this like concept of GoSquared, because back then when I was building websites, which was probably a little bit, the company was probably 5 or 6 years old, like at the time that I was building websites, like GoSquared was. So like I remember building those websites and putting GoSquared on it. And I never paid for it, and I'm sorry for that. But I think we pay for it now. I don't know if we're a customer
I think
anymore.
Paddle
I think we are. Yeah, I feel like we are. If not after this, we are. So I don't know how much it costs, but it's too much.
The only reason I came here, Christian.
That, and why aren't you using Paddle? I'm pretty sure.
Working on it.
Yeah,
Speak to JT.
I'm pretty sure you use a purple competitor of ours. That you shouldn't be, because they suck. This is recorded.
This has gone dirty. This is just a nice chat, Christian.
This is a crash course in sales for the audience. So I have this concept of GoSquared as this free analytics product that I would put on my website. And I feel like you had tens of thousands of people who were probably like me putting free analytics on their website initially. I'm interested to hear sort of if that was intentional. Like if it was intentional to like go wide distribution, get as many like websites as possible using this thing, and kind of upsell, convert, whether that was even part of the thinking, or if it was just like, people are using my thing, woo! Like, because that was basically like how I felt back in the day, so.
I would love to say there was a massive strategy and we planned this all out as like 15, 16-year-old kids that knew everything, but we knew absolutely nothing. And to be honest, like all we had for reference was like, I think we definitely looked at companies like 37 Signals, Basecamp at the time, and just I remember we read there's a book they put out really early on called Getting Real, which was like the playbook in the day for building a SaaS business, a B2B SaaS business, and it was like charge for your software, don't give it away for free. We didn't read all the chapters.
I think both of us.
Oh no.
How will everybody hear us?
We can. What about in the 50th row? They're not gonna.
Okay, now they're working.
Cool. We're back. We're back in the room.
For all the people at home. I wish this was live.
Yeah. We didn't read like. Well, anyway, we did not have like a big strategy. I think in the early days, I think we were. And I still see this a lot when I talk to other people early out in their like journey running a company, and there's sort of sometimes this hope that like you build this thing and the day you launch it, suddenly you're going to be flooded with people that want to try it, use it, and pay you money. And I think in those days I think the naivety in some ways was a good thing, because the naivety actually pushed us to. I can hear a little bit of feedback. Just hoping my mic's okay. The naivety if we knew too much about the space, I think we would have found reasons not to enter it. But I think there was something beautiful about that naivety that made us think like we're kids. Let's just give this a go and figure out as we go. I think we put out the tool and like no one came along. No, we were like, what the hell do we do? Like we built this thing.
So my concept of being one of like tens of thousands, I was actually just the only. No.
Well, it was just like us,
just me.
Us and Christian. And so we sort of started on this quite long journey of like, how the hell do we get people to even know we exist? And that led us to just doing stuff that teenage kids could figure out, which was like, let's write some blog posts. Like we know we're learning how to design, we're learning how to build, we're learning how to build a company. So like, let's just write about that stuff and put it on our blog. And if we design anything, let's give it away for free. And like, and that was back in the days when there were like sites like, do you remember dig.com?
I do remember
Of course
Dig.
you remember dig.com. Yeah. This is like the front page of the internet before like, I just remember some of these things we did, which were just like free things on our blog, got to the top of Dig, and suddenly like we were inundated with people coming to our site and learning about us. And through trial and error, we started getting people that were interested in analytics. A lot of things for creatives, that people that were building their own websites. And by hook or by crook, we started getting people to start using our software. And but we made all the classic mistakes. Like, okay, we had a free tier. And that was definitely about just making it easier to get started. But we also, like, our paid tiers were barely paid. It was like, I think it was $4.50 was our cheapest plan for, at the time I look back at that and think like, we're obviously in such competitive spaces, wherever you look in SaaS today, it's so competitive. Back then it's like, our thing was like something landing from outer space and people were like, it moves. And like, in hindsight, if we had not being as naive about business, we probably could have charged 10 times all of our prices and found a whole different sector of the market we could have been after. But I don't know, I think we just always, in some ways it's a good thing, some ways you could look at it as a bad thing. We were building something we wanted to use ourselves, which helped us guide the direction of the product, and it perhaps guided us maybe too much on pricing because we were teenage kids with no money. And so we ended up getting a lot of teenage kids who found that $8 was too expensive for software. And so we did build up a lot of but I think a community and an audience was still very valuable to us at the time. It was a big reason why we managed to build a company that's still here today. So
yeah, I think the point on naivety is such a good one. I think we exist in a time now where there's so much information about like building a company, starting it, how hard it's going to be. I think like I started a payments company. Like it's just like
how hard can it be?
It's like Payments Plus. It does your taxes for you. Like it's like literally the most boring, highly regulated space that I could have possibly picked. And had I known everything that I know now, and that we would have like a risk and compliance team, which I was showing you, I probably wouldn't have started. But I think that's the case with everything. I think it's the only way that you actually have the opportunity to approach something fresh. Like you probably would have ended up, if knowing everything you probably would have ended up building kind of a really shitty analytics product. And it's probably the reason why at the time the other analytics products were similar.
I totally agree, and I actually think, I don't know what other questions you got for me, but like jumping ahead, when we finally sort of, we can go into university and stuff if you want, but like we eventually ended up building the company a bit more seriously, full time, and taking some money on board, not much, but we took some funding, and suddenly we found we were like being placed in this space that we didn't think we were in by people like TechCrunch and by investors, and before you know it, like you lose that naivety, and you think, and you also like everyone around you is telling you how you should be more like this other tool. And I think we ended up getting very taken off track by other influences over time that, our own naivety and us trying to overcome our own naivety was very helpful in guiding us in the early days. And I think it's sometimes, it's a very magical moment to be working on something until someone comes along.
What, can you pinpoint any of those like mistakes specifically of like things that you did that sort of with hindsight you wish that you hadn't?
Yes.
Fire away.
Oh my God, there's so many things. Like, you know, I feel like often this stuff is actually more helpful to share than like, oh, we're crushing it and like it's amazing and everything's going
No
great.
one is actually crushing it.
Yeah, no one.
I mean,
literally every company
Slack,
I've ever met is a
Slack
shit
might
show
be
on the inside.
crushing it, but no one else is crushing it.
I know, yeah. Like whenever you meet other founders, it's like, oh my God, everything's going wrong. Yeah, other than Christian. No, you didn't say that. It's all fine.
Everything is going wrong.
Other than the WeWork printer.
Yeah. Ooh, you could spend 20 minutes on WeWork printers.
I'm going to open the water when you're talking, and then it won't be an awkward silence. Yeah, so, I mean, there's just so many things we've done wrong. Like, I mean, already going over it, like building something and hoping that people will come along. That was a big one. But there were so many mistakes we made after taking some funding, which was we were like, when we raised some money, it was very much off the back that there was a space and that there was a space that could be owned. And we were, again, like pretty young. I think we were like 18, 19. And it was literally for us a choice between going to uni or running the company full time, continuing to run the company full time. And everyone around us seemed to know better. So we just thought, okay, well, apparently we're in this space and we need to play in this space. And, you know, you end up getting written about in things like TechCrunch and they're like, oh, GoSquared's taking the fight to competitor X or Y. And before you know it, like everyone, like you, and that then drives people coming into the funnel of like, oh, do you have feature X? And you know, we started getting taken totally off the path of what we thought we were building because everyone was telling us we were building something different that was like this other thing. And I just think it took us a very long time to realize that we were starting to build a company that wasn't what we wanted to be building. And a long time to then correct that. And I think even like when you get to where we are today and what we've been building over the last year or two, it's like actually been much closer to what we originally were trying to do, even way back in 2007, 2008. And I just look back at that and I think, God, in hindsight, we really should have just done what everyone says and like focus more and more and more on our customers and like talk to them, just try and block like in as much of like the space and especially competitors, like just getting so taken off guard by like they've built that feature, that must be they must have built that for a reason, they must know better. Like let's do. So yeah, we got taken off guard a lot there. A ton of mistakes that we made there. We also like part of taking that funding, we were basically kids and had a ton of money in a bank account, and we didn't make the mistakes of like throwing a massive party. We weren't cool enough to do that, but we did start to like make hires that were just utterly stupid. Like we knew nothing about hiring. We knew nothing about like how to structure a team or process. Like we'd been like 3 guys in a shed, like building stuff, and we loved building stuff. And so the concept of having to judge like even who the right hire should be and how to like find the right person that could help on growth or sales or even customer service, we were just firing in the dark totally. And so we just made a ton of mistakes firsthand. Like, you know, these days, I feel like there's a ton more advice out there. There's so much more networks, communities, advice. But in those days, like, there were not that many SaaS businesses, full stop, let alone in London. Yeah. And I think there was like 2 co-working spaces. One of them didn't have like desks. And so we were like, you know, we were just really making up as we went along. And so, you know, just in terms of, like, we just learned so many things the hard way by just making mistake after mistake after mistake, like how to manage a product sprint. Like, what the hell is a product sprint? How to deploy even code and make sure everything doesn't fall over. Like, how to, you know, like how to ensure team members are happy and work together and collaborate. How to hire people properly and not hire people that are not going to work out in 2 months' time. And, you know, all of that stuff. We've just made so many mistakes early on that we learned, but we learned by making those mistakes. And I think in hindsight, like, you know, we should have probably got advice. I mean, God, we were kids. Like, how would we have known how to do a lot of that stuff? So we should have got advice on board much sooner. Yeah. We probably should have made a I think this is a common thing also. A lot of people make a mistake of not hiring senior enough people, especially after taking some funding. Like, you always need doers, and like, we need someone to put out that fire and that fire and that fire. But then if you don't have anyone sort of in a more senior position to overview and set goals and help set process up, then things can get so messy so quickly.
Yeah. I think sort of as time has progressed, I think that actually in Shoreditch, a standing up only co-working space would probably do quite well now. But
That's a good point.
I think I feel like so many of the things that you're saying like resonate so much with me. I started Paddle when I was 18. I raised initially 150K.
That's a lot for an 18-year-old.
Yeah, it is. I'm 24 now, and we've raised $26 million. So that's
more than $1 million a year.
Exactly. But I think the most fortunate thing that I was able to do, like completely by accident, was within the first 7 or 8 people, it kind of clicked that I needed to hire somebody who had vaguely some experience, and managed to find my CFO, Hugo, who I think, I'm actually not going to say that on camera, but I don't know what he was. We actually, the funny story about hiring my CFO is the month before, this was like 18 months in, the month before, like when we were in the interview process with him, we'd had like our best revenue month ever. We'd done like $26,000 in revenue in a month. And we were like, holy shit, like we'd done it. And then I distinctly remember this moment just as we would send it. We sent him like the employment contract and everything. I think it may have been the first employment contract that we sent. Like the 6 people before, I think it was like on a napkin or something. It's just like, need a job? Cool. But I distinctly remember the moment, like basically the day that we sent it, we were on a Skype call with our largest customer, who was $23,000 a month of our $26,000 a month, and they'd just done their product launch, and we'd organized these cupcakes with their logos on it to be made and sent to them, as the UPS guy is in the background of the Skype call, delivering these quite expensive branded cupcakes. They're just firing us as they're like, yeah, we're moving away. I'm really sorry about it, which. The insult to injury on that was then the next call that I had to make was like, dear CFO, you know how our revenue was $26,000 last month? Now it's 2.5. Would you still like to join? To which he said yes. He believed. But yeah, that was a fun week.
We all have days like that.
Exactly. But so much of what I still have the crisis today about, I'm hiring a sort of, it happened when I hired my VP sales, which was about 6 months ago. And I'm sitting in a room with this guy, Adam, who's amazing. And he's been sort of VP sales or SVP sales at kind of a bunch of different companies that I'd actually heard of. And I was like, holy shit. And I'm sitting in this room, and I'm like, and we'd been through we were 5 or 6 months into the process of hiring a VP sales. So we'd gone through maybe sort of 7 or 8 people that we actually thought we were going to hire for this role. And every single one of them I had advice from you. It's like, they're not senior enough, they haven't done it before, they haven't done it at this scale, they're not right for the scale that you want to be. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I've never done this before. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm completely unqualified for this.
Imposter syndrome, yeah.
Holy shit. So, and I think that sort of, I made the one fortunate decision to be okay with hiring people who were sort of more senior than we needed at the time. And I think the other one was I really enjoy just being the stupidest person in a room. The more that I can learn from the other people there, I find great comfort in it because I feel like I've made a good decision, which happens quite rarely. But sort of, and I think that's the one rule that I take into kind of interviews now is sort of is this person have significantly more knowledge about the thing that is that we're hiring them for than I do. And sort of if that's true, and they're a good fit, it's probably a reasonable decision.
Totally. And in the early days, it's very hard to get into that mindset. I think it's only learning and learning and learning that you realize actually I don't want to be the I don't want to be the clever one in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it makes things a lot easier. Back to the questions. What?
Bring it on.
So you start this company. You're doing these real-time analytics for people. Were you monetizing immediately? Sort of what was that process like of getting to this kind of, I guess, product market fit of the initial analytics product? I know you've built a ton of awesome stuff since then, and I imagine have lots of paying
I keep trying
customers.
to rewind back to them because it's like the term product market fit wasn't really a thing, and like, you know, it was just such a different place. Like even just charging people. I mean, you probably have a bit of knowledge about that space, but yeah, like, but you know, I think we had like a PayPal account, and we're like, how do we accept subscriptions? And then we end up signing up for like, I don't know, American Express, and we had to have like 4 American Express accounts, and like, oh, it was just awful, like all of the payment stuff. But we really, I mean, I cut out a little bit of the story where we didn't jump straight into analytics because we actually, for a little bit of time, tried to build an ad network.
That's coincidentally actually the thing that I did between
right
invoicing software
sure
and Paddle.
yeah Jesus, like we're like I can find like we're actually brothers or something.
Yeah, exactly. The same
yeah
person.
but yeah, like, you know, I think what happened was we were trying to build this ad network which involved us building out kind of the similar technology around the analytics stuff, and we just realized like trying to make money from that was basically impossible. Like we would get people with websites to put ad placement up, and then we'd try and get advertisers and try and bring them together, but we never had enough sites, we never had enough advertisers, and the money we would make was like tiny to do all the bullshit. And so we ended up like with the analytics stuff, we're like, God, that in comparison looks so simple. We just like build this software and you come along and, well, in your case, don't pay for it, but hopefully pay for it. I'm going
to sign up for an annual
the biggest plan.
whatever
click the contact us button. Yeah, do that. But yeah, like we just never even we never wanted to be this kind of company that would go and raise a boatload of money and like figure out a business model later. We just always wanted to try and keep it as simple as possible. Like we build software and we charge money, and if you pay for that software, you know, we're like everyone's incentives are aligned. Like we build better software, you keep paying us money, and you keep paying us money, we keep building better software, and like, so like that was what we always intended to do, and we always just wanted to build a company we would want to work out ourselves, and still that's true to today. Like we could have raised more money, we could have, you know, sold out, or we could have done all sorts of stuff, but we've just always since the early days been trying to build this company that is self-sustaining, that builds off of our customers and builds exactly what they want. And it's incredibly empowering when you get to like call the shots in that way. And yeah, like and so from the early days that was the case. And and you know, the free tier like was a very helpful thing in many ways. Very hard like to object. I don't know. We try to look back at it, and we've actually tried like running GoSquared with a free tier, without a free tier, on and off over the entire course of the history of the company. And a lot of the impact of a free tier, I feel like we've gone suddenly into SaaS
let's go
mechanics and stuff.
It's called SaaS Stories.
I'm very aware you had Patrick from Profit World.
Yeah, we did. He was
day.
number one.
Oh God, he's going to be like so much better. Like I'm probably going to totally ruin like everything he said, but
I'll compare.
From what we found was just like a free tier is so hard to like objectively measure like the impact of, because what we found is like literally we had someone upgrade today like paying 100 quid a month that used our free tier in 2010, and
it was me.
Yeah, I was like, oh, it's Christian. But like it's just like the free tier. It wasn't just about like do what percentage of them become customers. Like we had like an API from the very early days, and so many of the free tier users were like young developers who don't have any money, but they love coding, they love developing, built all sorts of integrations on top of the platform, and would often like just talk about us at like meetups and things. And there's all this stuff like there's no analytics tool that measures like a mention of GoSquared at a meetup in Brighton.
That's, I think from the thing that we did with Patrick, his like line, probably, sorry if I get this wrong, is free isn't a pricing model, it's an acquisition strategy.
Right, yeah. That sounds way better than what I just said. Yeah.
It's in this now, so we'll just attribute it to you.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Just dub it over.
Yeah, that was when the mics failed earlier. It's like, nice. So I guess I have kind of two questions around fundraising. I guess the first is, would you ever raise money again? I mean, for GoSquared specifically.
Yeah, I think it's hard to ever like say ever or never. I'm definitely not like totally opposed to the idea of fundraising. I think so far we've just found that like we actually really love building a company that like we have been a bigger team than we are today, and we're currently like I just love actually just working as a smaller team at the moment. Just the amount we can get done as a small team, especially on the product side, is incredible. And I also just love actually this feeling of like immense like control over, we do want to grow this company and quite aggressively, but like we also have tons of fun doing it and have a lifestyle which is really, really fun as well. And I think I don't know. I think I do feel very conflicted on the fundraising side of things because I think there's this obviously this rhetoric throughout the startup ecosystem of like raising money is good, and the more money you raise, the more successful you are, and everyone's looking to be that unicorn billion-dollar company. And fine, like a lot of people love that, and I have nothing against anyone wanting to do that, but I think for us, like we would love to be $100 million business, or even a $10 million business. And I think at the moment, like our sights are more on like, let's organically grow as much as we can with this business. And if in the future, like, we change our hearts or we want to change things up or do something a bit different, then maybe we'll raise money in the future. But I feel like, touch wood, like it's hard for us to screw up too badly if we just keep building a customer base and keep building a product that delivers for them, and keep running a company we genuinely feel really proud of and love working at. And, we just keep saying, we keep talking about it, like we want to build a company we want to work at. And like if we go and raise too much money and screw it up, or we go and get acquired, then, that changes things.
There's a potential that isn't the case anymore. Yeah. That's one of the things I've been really conscious of building Paddle is sort of how do we maintain sort of that, like we were once a company with 3 people in a room and sort of building stuff and just figuring it out. And it's how do we maintain kind of that, it's more of an attitude towards things than anything else, like as we scale. Yeah, and I just think like, I don't know how many people in here are like earlier on in their journeys, but like I just think like there is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of like trying to build a company that doesn't want to be $1 billion unicorn, Like there is there are millions of businesses around the world that are like people are really proud of that are, making $1 million a year or 10 million a year. And I just think I find it so sad when people feel like ashamed to say that. It's like a binary outcome of whether you're successful or not.
Yeah.
There are actually many more shades of successful than...
It's like, I just like, when you think about trying to build $1 billion company, like the amount of trade-offs you have to make personally, like, it's hard to be sympathizing with someone trying to build $1 billion company. But it's like, when you actually think about it, it's like, great, okay, I built this $1 billion unicorn, but like, what do you actually want personally? And I think in the early days as kids, we were like, yeah, we want champagne, we want limos, we want money, we want money raining down from the ceiling. And actually, it's like, as you grow up, you realize like, actually, you want to have a life, you want to have a relationship, you want to spend time with maybe having a family at some point. Like, actually, when you are not 18, you realize that some of these things, they weigh quite heavily on your mind. Like, there is more to life than building $1 billion company.
Yeah. I feel bad now about wanting to build $1 billion company.
Yeah, sorry. I've got nothing against it, Christian.
Yeah. But I think you are right, and I think the thing that motivates me is less about kind of how do we buy nice things, and it's more like I think probably at one point it was. I think it's much more now about sort of I'm still building the thing that I wanted when I was building software.
Yeah.
Which I think is the same for you. And I think the thing that I realized of about Paddle was sort of how do I do that for the most software businesses that exist in the world? How do I do it for the most possible people? And that's the thing that motivates me rather than this like outcome or number. It's 6 billion. No, and I think everybody is motivated by different things, but I think it's definitely a trade-off. And I think we don't talk enough. I think we're starting to talk more, but we don't talk enough about the companies who want to build a really great product, a sustainable business. Like it's not a binary like we shoot for the moon, and if we don't hit it, like we're fucked.
Yeah.
Outcome. And I guess I'm interested as well. Obviously, you did raise money at one point.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that when you raised money at one point, there was this sort of expectation, or be it self-imposed or otherwise, that you were going to build something like colossal and be that sort of 100x outcome that everybody who put money in wanted. Like, how did you manage those relationships, I guess, or that process as sort of, I guess, you matured and figured out more about what it is that you wanted to build versus what you thought you wanted to build?
Yeah, I mean, we have a good... so we raised money from the folks at Passion Capital. I think we even raised money before Passion Capital kind of existed. So, they put a lot of trust in us very early on. And, like, I think I don't know if we're still one of their youngest investments, but I think they knew they were taking a big risk on putting money into these kids. But we continue to have a very good relationship with them. But I think... the investing is a risk, right? Yeah. And I think in many ways, like there's a lot of stuff we're still like figuring out actually, just in terms of how we continue with having that funding. But I think for us, like we've just been very clear with them, like we're trying to build we're trying to keep growing the business, and we're trying to build the best business we possibly can, and we're on a different timescale to what we thought we were going to be. And I think there's a good shared understanding there that we're not going to be the $1 billion unicorn tomorrow, right? But we're not here to...
We're not giving up.
We're not here to sack it in. We're here to build a really great company, and let's all go along for that ride together as much as we can. And to be honest, they've been absolutely fantastic. I mean, you hear so many horror stories about investors that, put so much pressure on, and I cannot fault Passion at all for they took a gamble on these kids out of uni, out of school, really, and to have been so supportive for so long, it's just been incredible. And I think we could have been in a very different place if we had been less lucky with the people that knocked on our door.
I think that's testament to making sure you raise money from the right people.
100%,
and the people who are going to be supportive regardless of what trajectory you take. And actually believe in you as founders and the idea and the business and kind of creating something, as opposed to quick wins and kind of expectations of like, you're the 100x outcome that I need in order to return my fund. I'm interested in something like, this is actually selfish because it's something that we're thinking about.
It's your event, Christian. It's your event.
Yeah, I know. I was just being polite. The contact us button. The
what?
Click it. The one that I'm going to click later, and then I'm going to have a chat with you about how much money I'm going to pay you. Sort of, how did you make the decision? How do you think about like enterprise? How do you think about bigger accounts? Because I think that's often a challenge when building a product like this, especially when you have this long tail of potentially thousands of businesses who have used it for a long time, or smaller businesses or individuals. Like, how do you think about that? And then also, one, selling to them, but also like how you build product for disparate kind of customer types.
Yeah, that's cracking. So for context, like I love talking about products, so I'm gonna try not to talk for too long. I don't want to hog everyone's lovely sunny evening, although the sun's almost gone. But
everyone will show up.
Well, so first, I feel like Patrick was probably far better at answering all of this stuff than me. And to be honest, like we have also, talking about mistakes, like we made a ton of mistakes along the journey of like veering all over the place on pricing and how we price the platform. And it is very hard. Like as we developed the platform, we have absolutely developed the pricing. Like we developed a lot of different customers and a lot of different types of customers that use us for all sorts of different reasons. And there has always been this challenge of like we try and be really nice people and we try and build the best product we can. But sometimes like you can be too nice to build a growing business. Like and so it's very easy to get addicted in the early days to that growth from a certain audience, but if at some point you find out that audience is no longer where the growth in revenue is going to come from, it can be very difficult to know what to do with that audience. Like, how long do we wait for Christian to pay us?
It's going to pay
money
off.
and upgrade,
like big time.
And we still have a lot of free
£100 a
users on the
month.
platform that still use us, and you just got to be like, there's so much like we try and do in terms of how we take feedback on board and build the right platform for people. And so we've gotten much more meticulous over time about understanding who is asking for what. So in terms of product development, like every time something's asked for, it's recorded. It's recorded with the context of what they wanted. It's recorded with like their details of like how much they pay us. And when we build new functionality in the platform, like every feature starts with like engaging with those people who are asking around that set of features. And so like we try, we're very customer focused in terms of how we approach product development always. But in terms of building for such a huge base of people, it is very hard. If anything, like we've just gotten clearer over time about like the kind of company we want to build. And right now, like we don't really have a sales team, and I'm maybe slightly envious of you guys having all your people over there with probably got their sales gong, haven't they, and all that.
No, we have this really elaborate system of screens and speakers that's like hooked up to Salesforce that plays people's theme song.
But
it's actually great.
Yeah. So I think there's tremendous opportunity in building out enterprise sales, but we have so far not done that. We have tried in some small ways and not managed to do it successfully yet. What we have found continuously to be successful for us to build the revenue we've built so far and to build the product and the company we've built so far is trying to build the best product we possibly can and appeal to people that use the product and to bubble up through the organization, just as things like Trello, like Slack, even Stripe, Twilio, people like that. And what we've found over time, and especially from trying things and failing at them, is that actually like our strengths core to our founding team is building a great product. And just what we've focused even more on is building into the product ways we can encourage you to see more value and ultimately justify paying more money for GoSquared. And so, a lot of it has been built from talking to customers, but we started as this analytics product. We learned a lot from people that was struggling to justify paying more than, £8, £9. And we talk to them and find what other things they need to be doing on their site. Like actually, turns out that when you have a website, a big thing is trying to turn those visitors into customers, in capturing leads and finding these areas of the platform we can build out that are much easier to justify spending money on.
Yeah.
And so over time, we've seen these people that maybe one day started at like $9 a month, starting to spend 50 a month, and then maybe 100 a month, and growing both in terms of their usage, but also like buying more of the platform over time. And a lot of that just has happened very much through customers doing that on their own bat. And that's small, medium businesses, like under 20 employees, people spending, and there's a huge, huge audience there. And I feel like for us, like increasingly, actually, we just want to keep focusing on that audience right now and make sure we have tens of thousands of companies that are in that small, medium bracket. And it's always been a concern that we spread ourselves too thin by trying to do enterprise as well, because that's a whole other product roadmap. That's a whole other team to build out. And like we're just about like able to do what we're doing today and do it to the level we really believe is decent and that we're proud of. And so like at the moment, our focus is very much on continuing to do that. But at some point in the future, let's say we might give that another shot and see what happens.
Yeah, let's do questions if there are questions.
Cool.
Questions. Cool. Wow. Okay.
Oh my God, what is this?
It's throwable.
What is this?
There you go. We maybe shouldn't do that when people have drinks in their hand.
What even is that?
It's a throwable. You just speak. Just speak.
Is that a buzzer? Is this the sales gong? No?
Is that working? Does that work?
I really enjoyed your SaaS stories, and your journey sounds really familiar to me.
Me too.
But both of you, but in a very different way. So I've done the exact same. I had the exact same start with experimenting a lot, selling freelancing, building cloud hosting services and ad revenue systems and all that stuff. And then I kind of called it quits for a while and got a lead engineering job to a very early startup. How early? I was their first employee. And 5 years later, they got to 200 employees.
Wow.
And so I was there for the entire journey, and I've experienced a lot of that, a lot of those challenges along the way. And about a year ago, I started my own journey in startup and in SaaS and such, doing like Atlassian apps, building, basically being a vendor in Atlassian marketplace and so on. So I do have a question, like hypothetically.
This is the best questions.
Hopefully this never ever happens, right? But I wanna kind of capture the essence of it. If let's say, and this is a question for both of you, if let's say tomorrow everything would disappear except for your experience, your knowledge, your everything that you've gathered in this journey, but everything else will disappear, and you would need to start from scratch. What would be one of the key aspects that you, or strategies or elements of your new journey that you would pursue to ensure that you're starting on the right path, right? You're starting like a successful startup all over again. So what would be one of the most critical pieces of information or elements that you would implement in your new journey?
Wow.
Wow. I'm going to let you go first.
Thanks. Cheers, mate.
Unless.
I think the, and you might agree with this, I think the one thing that has always served me well and continues to is building a good product. Like, focusing on that, like initially, customers have to come, sure, revenue has to come, sure, but sort of you can, and unfortunately, you can still build a big company with a shitty product. Like, it is a thing that you can do. But I would rather not. And I feel like it's a lot easier and you have a lot better time if you build a good product and you build a business anyway. So I think starting again from scratch, I just focus on building something cool something that I wanted, and hopefully other people do as well, and see where it goes. I think it's helpful not to have expectations up front. I think it's helpful to build something almost for the sake of building it initially, and then if that is something that you can turn into a business, have that as a goal. But I think focus on building a product that people want, that people hopefully love, that they're advocates for, and that you would use yourself. You can't just second that. Like, you have to have a completely different thing. Build a sales team.
Build a sales team. Get a sales gong. I think there's definitely this might contradict Christian slightly, actually, in that, like, I think one of the things that I often struggle with as someone who loves building things is I do get very passionate about making stuff, and I think that's a really healthy thing for anyone. Like I just, the thing I get a kick out of is creating and making, and I love that we get to do that like every day. But I think sometimes, and I see this a lot with other makers and other people building stuff, that they get so caught up in the building and the making that they lose sight of the problem that they're actually trying to solve. And I think that when you look at just jumping ahead a bit, like with a lot of companies, they spend so much time building out features and building out products, but they don't spend anywhere near as much time on really deeply understanding the problem and the type of customer that they're actually solving that problem for. And so, I think sometimes I look back at our history and look back at, like, we stumbled upon a problem that we had, and we were lucky that a lot of other people really wanted to understand their website better and wanted to see real-time data, wanted to see their visitors. We were lucky. It wasn't that we spent a ton of time deeply understanding a problem to solve. And I think that's an important thing to just bear in mind when you love building stuff. Like, remember to just get out there and try and, like, ideally you're customer number one, but hopefully there's a customer number 2 and 3 and 4 and 4,000 out there, and get out there and just talk to them, because you'll almost certainly impact the whole thing you're trying to do if you do that. That would be my...
I take it all back. Oh, wait, what he said.
I don't think they're kind of like...
I don't think they're conflicted.
I think you have a love of building products, but you're also interested in solving real problems.
We got
Cool.
Cheers.
We'll take one from up here, and then we'll do another.
Oh, crikey, what is this?
Exactly.
Oh, my God.
Super professional.
What is the one for?
Ooh.
Best educational
Well, you pick one. Go
reasons.
for it.
Productivity tips is a nice one, because it's like practical kind of
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, because I quite like just learning about what other people do, so I'm kind of keen to hear your answer, to be honest, Christian. I'm being very selfish. I actually added that one up myself.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
You're very sneaky. Nice.
No,
Did you on the Apple Watch?
Yeah.
You've been typing it for the whole thing.
So what are your top productivity tips to keep productive during your workday? This is something I struggle with a lot, because, again, like, I think everyone finds, if you start a company, like, again, this is actually one of those things that actually is really difficult as you build a team, because you go from being someone that spends most of their day in, like, Sketch or a code editor or whatever, and then you suddenly realize that, oh God, there's other people around my desk that need me, and trying to balance that. And I think one of the things, I forgive me if this is really basic, but I've really thoroughly enjoyed Paul Graham's essays on startups. If you haven't read them before, I highly recommend checking them out. One of them is this maker versus manager post, an essay he wrote about, and it's essentially saying that, like, if you're trying to do anything creative, you kind of need to be totally 100% dedicated to that. And if you're trying to be a manager of people or look after a team, like, you can't spend your day in Sketch. And so, like, trying to make sure you're very cognizant of, like, what you're trying to be at any, ideally on any given day, is critical. And I think that really helped me, like, I'd never made that division before for myself of like those things are not very compatible with each other, and you end up doing both badly. So one of the things I've tried to do, and I must admit I've fallen out of this habit, is like trying to dedicate in my week like maybe 2 days to the more creative side of things, of like actually thinking about difficult product challenges or product things, and try and make sure they're like essentially in my calendar. Like everyone can, you're always like booking in time for meetings, but like booking in time for like between 9 and 12, that is me doing something creative, and you can't book anything over that. I'm not going to open my inbox. I'm not going to open Slack. Trying to do that, and that's been a very healthy thing for me. Also, just like having a decent system in place for like to-dos. One of the things I enjoy about my routine at the moment is I do try and get up quite a bit earlier than I used to. I mean, when I was a teenager, I was pretty rubbish at that, and getting up at like, whatever time you want. And actually like just getting up earlier and trying to make sure you spend a little bit of time in the morning dealing with the basics and then planning out your day, like having a to-do list for the day before you get into the office has been just really, really helpful for me. So that's just been a couple of things.
I suck at this a lot. Just anything to do with being productive, really. Like I found certainly like my last 2-3 years when things have gotten really crazy in the last 2-3 years, sort of find periods of time where kind of I don't end up doing anything that's to do with product for like way too long, like weeks, and then I get the itch, and then I'm just desperately trying to like get that back. The most helpful thing that I've found for me is periodically, maybe probably once a quarter. Oh God, I just said quarter. Once every 3 months, what I'll do is I will kind of draw a pie chart. I'll use my calendar or whatever, and I'll draw a pie chart of how I've spent my time over the last 3 months. And then I'll draw the equivalent pie chart of how I wish I'd spent my time. And then I will kind of come up with a list of things of like stuff that I've done that I definitely shouldn't have done, stuff that I've done that I want to do more of, and stuff that I've done and I can't, and it's sort of inevitable that I'd had to do that anyway, and we should probably kind of account for that. And then kind of come up with a plan for myself of how I get from pie chart A to pie chart B. It's very non-scientific, but I find I find that like kind of almost doing like a retrospective on myself, and how I spent my time and how the last 3 months have gone, to be a really helpful exercise in just trying to be more mindful of the types of things that I'm doing, because I think day to day if left unchecked, I will come to the office and I'll get here at kind of 8 in the morning, and if my calendar is unchecked, from 9 till 6 p.m. will be 30 minutes like with different people every single day. So I started doing no meeting Wednesdays, where that's my kind of like focus work time, and then this exercise with kind of figuring out what I'm spending my time on has been super helpful.
Nice. Yeah, I think that like a higher level point on the productivity thing. I think it's so easy to feel like, there's always so much stuff to do and so many fires that are on fire. Like it often feels like a luxury to try and take time out to like think about yourself and to try and think about your routine and schedule. But I think if you can just force yourself to take maybe like a morning once a month, maybe just like try and put something in the calendar and actually put it in the calendar. So it's like a meeting with yourself. Because you think of all the meetings you have with other random people all the time. Like put a meeting with yourself and just try and take that time out to really to do like the kind of stuff you said. It can be massively helpful, and it genuinely can pay dividends. But like in the moment, it's like, but I've got 20 other things I need to do.
It's important. We'll take one. Is there any other? Go ahead.
Hello.
About the months ahead.
Yes.
So you mentioned that you wanted to grow aggressively. You said aggressively. What's the biggest obstacle in the way of that?
He's not using paddle.
The payment system we have is awful. So We're doing a lot. I think one of the things we certainly always struggle with is, again, kind of coming back to this whole like so many fires all the time. Like as a small team, you kind of always want to fix everything, and we've had a habit of trying to tackle, user acquisition, conversion, activation, conversion into customer, account expansion, addressing churn, and like trying to do all of that stuff all at the same time. And you kind of always need to have an eye on all of that. But at the moment, I think one of the biggest things for us is around just making sure we have more awareness of us as a company. Like it comes back to stuff we did with the free tier way back in the early days, and we killed it for a long time because we were like, this free tier, lots of people don't convert. Like maybe if we get rid of the free tier, more people will convert to paid. And then we'd see like some of the pipeline gradually dry up a little bit, and we think like, oh, maybe we should get a bigger pipeline. Maybe we should do a free tier. Like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah. And so you just go in these like cycles of like always testing things out, because the assumptions we made in 2011, 2010 are not necessarily valid today. So yeah, for us at the moment, it's very much like, we got thousands of people actively using GoSquared every day, but like, God, like there are more than thousands of businesses in the world that could be using us. And I think like when we really look at the opportunity for us, there's no shortage of companies that could be very happily using GoSquared today, and we're like just trying to do everything we can to try and make sure we're changing that. So getting more people into the product, into the platform, and using us, and yeah, so like that's involving a lot of different stuff. Like one of the things is very heavily involving is product. There's a lot of parts of the platform which very much help us turn existing customers, help them drive more business back to us. And I think that's really exciting for us, because it means we use our best skill sets as part of our growth kind of engine. And yeah, we can push back the sales team hiring a little bit longer.
I think we have time for one more question.
I realise I'm about to ask a follow-up question. I know
Go for it. Yeah.
And it's something I sort of struggle with in my day-to-day. You mentioned sort of about half an hour ago how you managed to successfully close the feedback loop with customers. So whenever you take a feature request,
Yeah.
you're great at sort of feeding it back to the customer.
Sure.
How do you do that now?
Sure.
As you grow,
Yeah.
how do you think you're going to still do that?
Yeah, great question. I quite like this stuff because it's so like practical. So very practically, we have a giant Trello board at the moment, which is basically all the feature requests that come in, and we have cards for every kind of key feature area. We have columns for each kind of product area, and on each card, whenever someone requests something, assuming it comes in via, say, live chat, the conversation will be copied into that Trello card, along with like their details, so that what ends up happening is the most requested things get bubbled up to the top of the board, and then when we are looking at our product roadmap and sort of trying to decide what goes on it, we look at that board. We look at, it's not just customers though. Like we're not just listening to customers and hoping they tell us everything. Like we have a vision of our own of where we want to take the platform, but it's bringing that customer feedback in, and then say we want to build out feature X. We've got a list of people there that we start by going and talking to them and saying, you asked for that thing like 3 weeks ago. Like, what did you mean when you said that thing? And that's kind of how we've done it so far. In terms of scaling that, there's definitely some ways we can automate like the gathering of that feedback. I know there's also some products out there that kind of maybe help with that workflow a bit. It's not at like breaking point to the point where we need to. It's amazing how far you can get on a free Trello account. I can't believe it. But
See, you're part of the problem.
I am, but I've dug my own hole there. In terms of scaling that, a lot of it actually, like we've already had to scale that to some extent, because in the early days it was like maybe one or two of us doing that, and then as you add people, like people don't do that. Like they're talking to a customer and giving all this great feedback, and then it just sits in a conversation somewhere and no one ever hears about it ever again. So like part of the scaling of that is just, has that process been written down? And that's been a massive thing. That's just like, if you do something more than a couple of times, just write it down, and then suddenly it's this magic thing where like someone else can pick it up. And so that's a big part of like how I see it scaling in the near future. And then maybe we'll buy some SaaS tool for it eventually. Yeah.
Awesome. I want to thank you very much, James, for coming and being part of this. I want to thank everybody who
thank you so much.
To come out.
Thank you.
I believe we have pizza, beer, other things. There's probably
and sunshine.
shitloads of it as well. So feel free. It's just at the back over there. Thanks again. Cheers.
Cheers.